Soon, you will understand the power of the unseen world.
Evil does not sleep. It waits.
There's far more at stake here than just our lives.
Fight with me.
For all Middle-earth.
You have lost, but shall return.
What are you?
I am no god. At least, not yet.
You will be known at last for who you truly are. For you are Lord Sauron.
Hi all, and welcome to the second and final episode of Fan Critical's podcast on The Rings of Power. I'm joined this week once again by my trusty dwarven companion John. Hello John.
Hello there.
And our resident mortal man doomed to die, Len. How are you, Len?
Yeah, see now, I listened to the last pod, obviously, on Rings of Power, and the reasoning behind you making me a mortal man was because that I'm easily tempted by the dark side.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Now, that's not fair, is it? I couldn't even defend myself. However, if you are saying that I'm Aragorn, I will accept.
Definitely
You're
not.
much more of a Faramir, I think. Which is not
Hey,
bad.
he's
Even
pretty
that's
cool in the
kind,
book,
I think.
So
Okay, well
he's very kind, very cool in
I
the
was
book.
just thinking of hair colour more than anything, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah,
Skill with sword.
a man. I think man is, good. Man is
all right.
good.
Technically, Numenorian,
Well,
really, in a way.
yeah, I thought of you more of an
So-
Easterling type. No, I think you probably do descend from the
Jesus.
line of Numenor. You are probably one of
Thank
those,
you.
one of the realm of.
Thank you.
Could be a
Yeah,
Gondorian.
nice that.
But yeah, I think once you have your race, you can kind of build on it from there, and you get to choose your destiny.
Yeah, it's like an MMORPG. What colour hair do you want? Do you want a beard? Any tattoos?
Yeah, I assume that's a gaming reference, so I'm going to leave that where it is.
It is. Yeah.
It is,
I
Lucy,
don't know
yeah.
what that
yeah.
means. Okay, so Len, you were ill last week. Well, last time. Perhaps
I was ill,
you-
yes, when you did Rings of Power,
You
yeah.
had some kind of pox that prevented you from joining
Mm.
us.
What pox was it?
Orc pox.
Large pox.
Ooh.
Are you feeling better now?
I feel much better. Yeah, this is the best I've felt probably since we started doing that House of the Dragon
Yes.
coverage, because I've just been ill
I mean-
constantly. I'm sure the listeners might have noticed my nasally inflections in some of the podcasts, but
Switching
now I'm
off in
actually
their
feeling pretty good.
droves.
Well, I mean, we did say before we started recording that this for you is like an absolute busman's holiday, because you don't have to make the notes, you don't have to host, and you don't have to edit. So
Nope.
you are here purely
Nope.
for enjoyment.
Yeah, and it
I hope
was,
it's
it was a
enjoyment.
very strange and lovely feeling. I'm living in your guys'
Yeah.
shoes, and it feels good, guys. It feels
Zero
very good.
responsibility, just vibes. Love that for you. Okay, so Len, weren't here last week. What did you think of the first 4 episodes of Rings of Power?
Yeah, all right. I'll give you a quick summary because I don't want to, yeah. I was astounded, and I'm sure we've all discussed this, just at how good the show looks. But also how I didn't think so at the start, but eventually starting to approach that episode 4 mark, I was starting to care about some of the characters a lot more. That had a bit more heart to it, especially the Elrond and Durin relationship, which I know you guys talked about. I think it's probably the strongest relationship in the series. I love it. I absolutely love everything about that. I think the guy playing Elrond's fantastic. I think some of the hints in the first 4 episodes and some of the storylines, they were a bit slow, especially some of the stuff in Numenor. And although Numenor looks fantastic, like amazing, like it's such a cool location and it's such a great thing to see. Because obviously in the iteration of Lord of the Rings, we just know about Gondor and the White City, and this is the place where man essentially, or the good side of man comes from in the Lord of the Rings universe. So it's awesome to see Numenor, but with some of the stuff in there just took too long. So overall, if I were to give a score to the first 4 episodes of The Rings of Power, it would have been a 4 bloob, because I don't think, from a technical standpoint, and there was obviously enjoyment in there, but from a technical standpoint, this is the best thing I've ever seen on television, ever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So if I were to give it anything less than a 4, like, because it's stuff that I like looking at as well. It's like, you know, fantasy stuff. It's not like, I'm not just saying it looks great. This is stuff that that I still hear the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, like when I went like hiking in New Zealand and stuff like that. Like, these are things I like to look at, these beautiful landscapes and amazing like structures that you know, these fantasy races have built and stuff like that. So I love it. So I love looking at that stuff. So for me, it's a 4. And there was room for improvement for sure. Like, similar to House of the Dragon, at that point, I was kind of like, I'm waiting for this show to knock my socks off, to take it to that next level. And I'm sure we could maybe talk about an episode or 2 in this final run of 4 episodes that might have done that.
Certainly.
Spoiler warning.
I mean, I think it's interesting because the first podcast me and John did for the first 4 episodes, but I'd actually seen episode 5. And I think episode 5 is where it actually kicks in. And I agree with you with the Numenor stuff, because as stunning as it looks, that was actually where most of my problems with it came from. I thought a lot of the acting was subpar and the dialogue, and I thought, what's happening here? Like, nothing's progressing. But from episode 5, I do think that's when suddenly sort of I got it. I sort of bought Isildur more. I thought, right, okay, I get you now. Just everything improved, I think, from episode 5. So yeah, I would agree with you that it needed to kick in, and I think it did. So it was funny to do the podcast on it, sort of being a bit critical of certain aspects, when actually I knew, it does actually get a bit better. Okay, Len, we'll stick with you for the second half of the season. What's your Blueberry score overall of the season, first season?
Okay. Now, I'm going to go straight off the bat with the Blueberry score for the season. Okay. It's a 4.
Okay.
That's not to say that there's not an amazing episode in there, because there is. But I think overall, a 4 is a great score for a first season, and still, you know, in saying that, so much room for this show to grow in season 2. Like, I think the scope of this show and the possibilities that it can reach are, you know, like when Game of Thrones is kind of in its prime, coming towards that third or fourth season of Game of Thrones, it could get to those levels. I think there's stuff in this world that they're doing, and things that they're doing with the story and how they're adapting it and changing it in certain ways that are really interesting. You know, I messaged you, Lucy, and we're doing spoilers, yeah? Spoiler warning, watch out. We were messaging on chat and that, and I said, Lucy, that Halbrand is Sauron. And you said to me...
You said the stranger.
And you said to me...
You said the stranger was Sauron.
I said there's 2 options. I said, stranger's the obvious option, and I read the messages, and I said, Halbrand is Sauron. And there were so many little interesting nuggets laid throughout the season that is an amazing payoff that I'm so happy about. Sauron, shapeshifter,
deceiver,
does befriend the elves. Deceiver does befriend the race of men. You know, he does these things in this second age to manipulate them into positions where he can create the One Ring. Now, it was amazing to see that sort of storyline pay off, and I think now some of the moments with him earlier in the season are absolutely brilliant. Like that Galadriel confrontation in episode 4, where she's like, you know, we've all done terrible things, and he's like, yeah, I've done some really bad stuff. Yeah, trust me. Yeah, I've done some really bad stuff. And then she's like, don't worry about it. Let's fight to make it right.
We will
so
definitely
that sort of stuff's great.
Go much deeper on Galadriel and Halbrand. And yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was very, yes, in our conversations, I was like, he's the Witch King of Angmar. He's the king beyond the mountains. I really just didn't get Sauron from him, but I love that because there was a moment, and we will discuss it, episode 7, I might as well just say yes, when Galadriel says, he needs elven medicine because he's injured. I was like, so you're going to take him to the home of the elves or the forges. I was like, okay, I see what's going on. But we'll get onto that. I'll do my blueberries now, and I also would give this season a 4. I gave the first half a 3 because the acting in Numenor really really did annoy me, and the dialogue. I think it improved massively. I think episode 6 is just, I was flabbergasted by what I was seeing. You haven't seen anything like that on TV, I don't think. And it happened at a point where, I did care about the characters. Lots of room for improvement for the second season, and I actually admire the fact that they did take their time, as slow as it did seem, to build this world, build these characters. So now we're set up after a decent first season for something very special in season 2, and I can't wait. So yeah, 4 for me. Really enjoyed watching it. Something I really just looked forward to, and as slow as it was, I was invested and really enjoyed it. Now our dwarven companion John has just been shut out of this conversation because we've just been yabbering.
All good.
We're saving the best till last.
He's been mining
against the wishes of his king, I would say, for good reason.
Yes.
So John, we know your thoughts on the first half of the season. You were quite impressed. You gave it 4. What do you think of how it ended, the last 4 episodes?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you go back to the end of the last pod, it kind of did exactly what I thought it would do. You know, it really kicked on in the second half.
Like Arsenal.
Yeah. Well, we've been going all season, so I'm going to talk about Arsenal at this point. But
Did do the pod. Arsenal pod.
And I got the ending completely spot on, about as spot on as you could get. You know, it ends with the crafting of the rings. You've got this music that's kind of triumphant, but then it sort of turns a little bit, and you're like, oh, they've fucked this, haven't they? They have completely fucked this. So good. Congratulations. They've done exactly what I asked them to do.
Well done.
Met the brief.
The stuff about Halbrand, like, again, we discussed that in the last episode, where you asked my opinion on whether or not I thought it could be him, and I was like, well, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, you said it could be. I was like, it's the Witch King, okay? You're all blind. But,
but it was like, obviously he has to go to Numenor, and there were lots of people speculating online that it would be him, and it made sense. It wasn't like, what? Norie's? What? How's that happened?
That would have been good.
Although that might have impressed
Lenny
me
Henry
even more.
is, what the...
Yeah. And look, if you're going to talk about, you know, brilliant things that have happened, they've killed Lenny Henry off as well. Brilliant. You know, honestly.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Get rid of him. Fucking hell.
I mean, get rid of
Les
all
Dennis
of them.
in.
Yeah.
Les Dennis, Bobby Davro, Dawn French. Get them all in for season 2.
I'd love Dawn French in it.
Dawn French could be in it. Yeah. Maybe she is.
She'd be good.
I guess we'll talk a little bit about episode 6.
Yeah.
I'm going to echo what Len says. It's really difficult, isn't it, to give a fair score with this show, because it's just ridiculous. Like, the budget is like, it's unlimited. We said that before, where it's like, okay, that it cost X amount to make, but it's not like they were told, look, you've got this amount, use this amount. They were clearly just gone, look, it's a blank check, do whatever you want, and then we'll total it up afterwards. That episode 6 is just fucking hell, outrageous productions, and it's the bit where it's like, you know, the broken sword goes in, or even a key, if you will. You get the water going through all of the trenches into the volcano. The water hits the lava, and it's like, what's going on? Look how good it looks, you know. And again, it ruins other shows like House of the Dragon. You're like, fucking hell, how shit does that look now? But again, the
CGI wise, yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
Well, and the story, but which is why I don't necessarily mind that this is a slower show.
No, I don't.
You'll get some people that will score this. Obviously, you've got the hate crime crew that are like, you know, they're not supposed to be in it, and it's like, all right, well, say what you feel. They're slugs anyway. Mm-hmm. You've then got some people that are like, well, you know, Gandalf and Aragorn aren't in it, so I'm bored, rubbish. And it's like, okay, but it's not supposed to be about that. I would give it a 4 bloob as a season. I'll say this: I think season 2 will be a cracker. I really do. It's we'll get into who we think the stranger is. I'll guess. Some people have just gone all in and it's like, well, no, it's clearly Gandalf.
Yeah, I'm
even though it doesn't work for the timelines.
No,
but in their interpretation of it, I'm bought into the reasons why it could be him. I would quite like it to be Saruman, but that's fine. But look,
I think it's a blue wizard, unnamed blue wizard.
Well,
that's
yeah,
my
because
guess.
they mentioned Rune, and that's where the
Dave.
blue wizards live. So we will get onto that, Dave the blue wizard.
Yeah,
I don't normally pay much credence to sort of bad reviews, but there have been so many that it has made me feel like I'm going mad. Like you sort of mentioned it, but a lot of the big sort of establishment entertainment reviewing websites or papers have just been eviscerated it. And I'm like, why do I like it then? Because I think it's good. And not that you have to agree, but so many of them, say, I read one in The Guardian saying about how bad the special effects are. I'm like, I feel like I'm being gaslit by entertainment media, genuinely, because and it's like, oh, the acting is across the board terrible. I'm like, I don't think it is. Everyone's entitled to opinions. It almost feels like there's a sort of agenda against it. I don't know why.
100%.
This is
But why?
It's high fantasy. It's high fantasy, so it's always very divisive. The thing that I think A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones did amazingly for fantasy, especially in the public eye, was it took it from this high fantasy situation and it grounded it in a sort of realistic and very disgusting and kind of hey, this is what happens if these rules in this world existed. This is what happens to women. This is what happens to cripples. This is what happens to anyone it doesn't fit in, isn't a highborn. And now when you go from that, because I think the last 10 years, the psyche, the pop culture psyche is trained in on that. Yeah. And then you go back to something high fantasy like this. Especially as it comes out at the same time as House of the Dragon, and they're two completely different shows, and I like them both very much for very different reasons. But you go to something like this, and it's just for some people, it doesn't have the drama, and it doesn't have the sort of complexity that some of those characters might have. But it doesn't need to have that. This is his own thing that stands on its own and lives in its own world, and people need to just respect that, and some people don't, and they're so trained at violence now and realism within the fantasy genre that this high fantasy just sticks out to them and doesn't really engage them as much as it necessarily should.
I also think well, you go, John.
So, sorry, Luce. So I guess we all agreed that the last episode of House of the Dragon was the worst of the season.
Worst of the season, yeah. I think that's fair to say.
So on
episode 9, we're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, I should have said that. Sorry. So episode 9, that's currently tracking at 8.8 out of 10 on IMDb. Pretty solid score that for such a terribly written episode, but it's fine because some guy's wanking over feet. Sorry for any listeners that haven't watched House of the Dragon.
Yeah, spoiler warning.
The best rated episode of The Rings of Power is obviously episode 6, and that's 8.2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just wrong. That's a crime. That is a crime.
But what that will tell you is, and again, I mean, look, you could jump on there and have a look at the scores, and there'll be plenty of scores for the episode before it's even aired.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, man, you
unfortunately,
you can't watch that episode and tell me that it's a bad episode of TV.
No,
There's
but
some guy, look, 4 out of 10, 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. Worst writing in modern TV, 1 out of 10.
But I think these are just little cretins that say that. But the professional reviewers that are paid to have their opinions are giving it 3.5 out of 5, that episode.
I think
I've gone mad. I don't get it.
I think if it wasn't an Amazon production,
I think it's the Amazon thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like Jeff Bezos is not a particularly popular man, and I suspect quite a lot of it is the bitterness around it. If this was like a Channel 4 and HBO joint production, filmed in New Zealand and Britain, it'd probably be getting rave reviews.
Yeah. It's just, I think...
Well,
because
fuck 'em anyway.
It's so strange to me. That's why I wouldn't normally go, reviews in a podcast because it's not relevant, but I was just reading through a lot of them for like recaps and just to refresh, and I was like, wow, people really didn't like this show. And whereas everybody I know that's watched it likes it. And I have a friend that's like knows all the Tolkien lore, and he's like liked it. Aaron, who doesn't even like Lord of the Rings, watched every episode and enjoyed it and didn't fall asleep.
Yeah, he's sitting there in his elf costume.
Yeah,
come on, the
little
next
elf.
episode's on.
No, he genuinely was like engaged with it and liked it. So I know that 7 other people doesn't mean right. Well, that's the fact of the matter. But it's just weird to me. But we'll move on from the negativity because we all liked it and we're happy.
Oh,
with
look,
it.
if you didn't like the series, then okay, fair enough. But if you're giving it like 1 out of 5,
That's what I mean.
Go away. Honestly, if you're listening to this and you gave it 1 out of 5, switch off.
Yeah, we
because
don't need
you know you're a fucking cretin, to be honest, and a hater, and probably
Jesus.
a racist as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go
It's
away.
true, it's
honestly.
Yeah, don't edit that out. I mean, you're editing, so you won't. Yeah,
Hey,
right.
not my job
No,
today.
you
Yeah.
free reign. Okay, so like the last podcast, we're not going to go through every episode; it's too long. So we're just going to go through the plot lines. They do start to converge a bit at this point, so we'll do our best with that. So I think let's start with Durin and the dwarves, because that storyline kind of ends, quote unquote, before the others. What did you think of this sort of... There's obviously quite a lot going on here. We've got Durin and Elrond again. Elrond sort of begging for his life, for the life of the elves. You've got Durin's meetings with his father, which I thought were really good, and his relationship between Durin and his wife, which I also thought was very interesting, because she seems to be going into a bit of a Lady Macbeth, pouring, not poison into his ear, but very much encouraging him to go against his father's wishes and keep digging. And she was a very cheerful, jolly character. And to see that in the later episodes, I was like, that's interesting, because that's not what I expected.
Definitely.
But what did you guys think?
I really like that. You know, it's some people might argue it's not subtle, but look, there are other TV shows where she would be lovely and then turn and then murder someone in about 20 minutes. So I like the fact that and there's a little bit of that with old what's his name? Fucking Celebrimbor. Whatever.
Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
Celebrimbor.
Such a hard
It's
one.
Keller, is it?
Keller, yeah. Hard C.
Yeah, Celebrimbor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Keep
as
saying
in
it.
the American goalkeeper, Casey Keller, for any 1980s Millwall fans there. It's this little turn in people where it's like, you know, this feeling in the air. It's turning people a little bit. People are getting a little bit overly aggressive, whereas before they weren't. You know, it's the
heat's turned
it's the
up.
Bilbo vibes, isn't it?
Yeah. Power
Yeah.
is corrupting, even if you don't know it's there.
And
That's right.
And I said this
Well,
before. I like the idea that we're going to. That's how the series will play out. We'll love these characters, and then eventually we'll see these beloved characters start to turn and get influenced by the rings of power. I like it. And look, in terms of a couple, my favourite part of the whole thing is the dwarfs. I think that whole setup is great. Slightly annoying that we've got another older king that's very like, no, go, fuck off. We're not going to help them. Like, how many times are we going to have this?
But even with that, I
you know,
kind of...
it is consistent.
I got his point a bit. He's like...
Well, he doesn't need them anymore.
He's like, the elves' time is over. I mean, it's over because there's an infection
bit harsh.
from Mordor. I know, but I don't... And I think he's got a knowledge of, actually, this is where Mithril comes from. And I love the scene of the history, the legend of Mithril with the Balrog and the elf. I thought that was really cool. I think...
Again, ridiculous budget.
Do whatever you want.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The Silmaril, the light of the Silmarils seeping into the ore. There's bloody loads to unpack with this dwarven storyline. I mean, obviously now the elves don't need the dwarves anymore, and they don't need the Mithril, because in theory the three rings will sustain the life force of the elves. So they don't need them anymore for the mithril, which is interesting. So that's done, hopefully. However, the greed and the power thing is an interesting thing because we know that the dwarves do dig too deep, and we even saw the old Balrog, Flame of Undun, underneath the mithril. So, the king is right. The old king is right. Like, they shouldn't be digging.
Yeah, I think he knows.
Because it's the end of the Dwarven Kingdom, this. This is Moria. This is, this is what happens. They dig over generations, they dig too deep, and essentially one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Dwarven Kingdom falls, into Shadow and Flame. So it's very interesting. And I love Durin. I love the actors.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to have that dwarf-elf relationship again. Obviously, we get it with Gimli and Legolas in the films, and it's just lovely to have this, I don't know, just one that I just think their rapport
between them, and it compels you to keep watching. You care. They're both great. They're both great actors. I think Owain Arthur is Durin and Robert Arameo is Elrond. And the scenes with what's his name? Durin's dad, Durin the Third. What's the actor's name? Peter
Durin,
Mullen. Yeah, King Durin.
Peter Mullen is fantastic as always.
But it's
mad,
just
isn't it?
their
He's just
scenes
in everything,
together,
isn't he?
It isn't.
He was good in Westeros.
Westeros World.
He was good in
Westworld.
But I like the scenes with him because he's not just an obstinate old dickhead that just doesn't want progress. There is a reason. I think I get why he doesn't want to necessarily assist, and it's quite harsh to say, well, the elves' time is over.
Explain why.
I think explain why and explain that everyone was going to suffer, including you. But what will be interesting in the future episodes is that the when they get the rings, I'm not sure how they're going to get their rings yet, obviously. But as much as they don't come under the sway of Sauron because they're too kind of their personalities are just too strong, basically, it does exacerbate their greed, and that's what leads them to dig and to bring about their own ruin in fire and flame, as Len says. So that will be interesting. But just the setup, I think, of actually people, they're all very like hearty and wholesome in their way, but to see this little change of, no, let's just go against your dad and do it, even though it is dangerous and it's.
But this exacerbates ruinous. That split between the elves and the dwarves, doesn't it? Because the elves have managed to save themselves without dwarven help, and the way they'll view it is, you fucking left us to die, man.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do the same.
You got your
too.
own rings now. Yeah. Well, that was lucky. Well, yeah, without your help. Yeah. So you can fuck off, to be honest. And then in The Hobbit, obviously, when they're fighting the fucking bald fella.
That orc, the white orc.
Yeah, the big orc fella.
That orc.
And they're like, hey, come on, help us out, elves. And they're like, no, fuck you, actually.
New.
Yeah?
How about new?
Not a chance. So, it's interesting.
Yeah,
Very
I think
interesting.
that's all interesting.
Very
also,
good writing.
Yeah, I liked the little swindle of the table. Ha, that was good. Durin telling King Gil-galad that this is a very sacred stone, that's their like tombstones, and then he gets it sent back to Khazad-dûm, and he's just like, what did the new kitchen table? Well played, Durin. Very well played. Anything else to say on
banter,
the banter. Just dwarf banter? Does anyone have anything else to say about the dwarves? Because I don't know that we're gonna
probably didn't have time, but would have been good to see more of like the Khazad-dûm. It would have been nice to just not see the King's Throne, some caves, and then their apartment. Wander around. They must have like bars and stuff.
Oh yeah. Ale houses.
Oh, they bloody have bars, mate. Yeah. They have bars.
Ale cave.
Jesus.
I'm sure we'll see more next season when the rings are delivered by Amazon. Yeah. Little pun there. The dwarves are really well done. Managed to stay on the side of like caricature, I think.
They will be well done if they dig any deeper.
Will they? Yeah. Did you like seeing the Balrog, or did you think a bit cheap?
Loved it.
too.
Yeah.
No, loved it.
A leaf.
It just because it shows it shows the casual, because I think casual viewers will be like, oh, is this the same place? And then when you see the Balrog, they'll be like, oh shit, that's really interesting. I mean, you're talking about events thousands of years. You know, the thing about Lord of the Rings is time is just crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is why I think this season's really interesting, and they've had to fuck around with the story so much because they want to tell a thing over 5 seasons, but really, this story in the Second Age takes place over 500 to 1,000 years.
This is what the creators said. They said like it's like 200 years will pass, and then your character's like dead. So they did have to condense it, and TV is different from books and appendices. So yes, they had to make sacrifices. Sorry to all the Tolkien heads.
100%.
Get over it.
Yeah.
But dwarves, thumbs up. Now,
thumbs
probably
up. 7 thumbs up for
everyone's
the dwarves.
least favourite storyline. We're going to go there now. The old
Numenor.
No, Harfoots.
Oh, do you reckon? See, I
You didn't
I
like
disagree.
them. You did not like the
No,
Harfoots.
but again, this is good writing, because every time they come up originally, I was like, "Oh, go away." By the end of the series, genuinely, when Nori's leaving, I was tearing up a little bit.
Oh.
I was, yeah.
That scene went on way too long. Oh my god,
It was a bit bizarre.
I was
Yeah.
like,
I was
said
like,
goodbye
I
to
might
one
be
set of
upset
people.
now,
And he was
but-
just waiting.
yeah, can we stop this?
Yeah, I mean, I think they provide a bit of levity, and I think Nori, the actress, Markella
She's good.
Kavner, she was good. She was strong. Happy to see more of her. I think the kind of who is the stranger? Is it Sauron or is it Gandalf? And that seemed to be what it was. To have two of those storylines going on at the same time, it dragged a little bit with.
I really like in the last episode. Like, I'm not a fan too much of the Harfoot story. I think I don't want to say it's crowbarred in there because that feels a bit wrong of me to say, but it feels like it didn't need to exist. Now, it's interesting. It all depends on who the stranger is.
Harsh.
Well, I just think they're throwing hobbits into the situation
Harfoots.
because people. Well, they are hobbits because people are like, we have to have hobbits in the story, and
Yes.
then one of them has to go on an
creators
adventure.
Did say like it won't feel like Lord of the Rings without a hobbit, and I was like, that's fine. I don't mind having these little lads in there.
Yes, that's fine. And look at it. But John's right. By the end of it, I actually did like the storyline. I absolutely loved the dialogue from the stranger at the end, where he says about following his nose.
Yeah.
I literally was just like giddy with excitement when he said that. Honestly, I was like, he's quoting.
It's just a nice
Fellowship of
little
the Ring.
nod, wasn't
He's
it?
quoting Moria lines.
That was nice. I thought that was like enjoyable.
Yeah, and his relationship with Nori is very good. And if it is Gandalf, wow. I mean, obviously they fucked around with the timeline quite a lot because he's about 1,000 years too early. But
Who cares?
I have no issue with it. I have no issue with it.
Yeah.
I have no issue with it because these Maiar, they come and they go and they fucking die and they get
Come and
reincarnated. It is what it is.
Where's he gone?
What I did
Well, that is true, John. Where do
What I
they
did
go?
enjoy-
They just
Wow.
float away
So
and
I
they come
think
back.
when it kind of livened up was the arrival of the 3 searchers, I'm going to call them, because they're also strangers. They were creepy. They were genuinely, when Nori tries to distract them in the dark, and then they just vanish, and then they just appear over her, genuinely, like, scary.
Yeah.
Would have actually liked a bit more
They
of
look
them.
like female engineers from the Prometheus film.
Yes.
That's what they look like to
Okay.
me. That's what I kept. The very Giger-esque slightness to them. I don't know. It scared me. Slightly.
Avatar. Not the
Yeah, scary Avatar.
not the blue ones.
No.
The the anime.
The anime,
I'd be-
yeah. Not the blue
I'd
fuckers.
be
No, not the blue
interested to
fuckers.
know where, like, who were they? Where did they come from?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff online about that. I mean, no one's kind of sure what they are. Obviously, servants of Sauron is kind of, or trained by Morgoth potentially, or they're already dead. They're in that unseen world realm. Like when he destroys them into those sort of quite a cool spell. Another sign that it could be Gandalf, by the way, they turn into moths, which is obviously a sign of moths.
They're his little mates.
Think back to Fellowship of the Ring.
Radagast.
Yeah.
Oh, Radagast.
Essentially, you could be Radagast. Well, could be John.
Imagine.
I'll imagine.
That would be
imagine.
shit, wouldn't
Be really shit.
But you saw their sort of like unseen world form. You know, like they looked like the Nazgul
Yeah,
when they're
they
in
could
the
be
ring
in the
world.
other
You know,
realm.
which. Yes, that's right. So it's interesting. I don't think we'll really see them again unless there's more of them in Rune.
I enjoyed the realization from them that he wasn't Sauron. Like, no, he's not Sauron.
Terrible
Abort,
line, though.
Abort.
It's the other, the Ishtar.
Oh, that means
I
that
am
means,
good. Ah.
in your language, that actually means wise one or wizard. Like, okay, thank you for that. Right, we know what you are now. Good. Cheers. Cheers,
Yeah,
mate.
too much of that.
Yeah.
You mentioned,
My
yes,
name is Gandalf.
Lenny Henry died. Sakor, what's his name? Sadok.
Sadok.
Sack off.
What I found funny about
Sack
the
him off.
Harfoots is that sort of in the first half they're like, well, you're injured, take his wheels, leave them to die. They're fucking ruthless. And I think if you're a migratory
they gotta be,
species,
haven't they?
that makes sense, that's fine. But then he does that speech about, you know, he doesn't say leave no man behind, but basically how Harfoots stick together and all this. I'm like, you literally sentenced Nori's dad to death because he broke his foot. Like, I don't think they got that right, because I actually quite like the idea of them being quite ruthless for their own survival. But then they were like, well, no, that doesn't play that well. Do a nice speech about togetherness, and you know they won't remember that.
Well, this could be a turning point in their society, because obviously the Harfoots are travellers, and then we know famously that the Shirelings, you know, build the Shire, and they build other homes that stay in the same place, and they have this huge network. So this could be the event that stops them from being afraid.
The irony that they would try and leave behind someone that's damaged his foot, and they're called the Harfoots. I mean, what's going on there? You're betraying your...
It's our name.
That's what we do.
Jesus.
Surely
They're
you,
heading
you
to
back Harfoots.
the Grove,
No.
is it? What's it called? The Glade, the Grove. There's like some sort of Great Valley place.
Yeah,
so
the
I
Grove,
wonder
yeah.
if that's going to be the Shire.
Farthingwood.
Yeah.
And that's where
The Great
The Great
Valley.
Valley.
I love The Land Before Time.
Get a tree
Jesus, I
star
love that
going.
film.
I wonder if that's going to be the Shire, and that's where they settle. So that could be something we see very, very
Could
further
be.
on in the show. Okay, Harfoots and Gandalf. I mean, do we think he's Gandalf? I think he's Gandalf. What's the point of everything else?
It would
if
be very weird misdirection if he wasn't at this point. Just because of the two things that he says, especially about following your nose, which is just the most nailed on Gandalf, one of the most Gandalf-y quotes in the actual book and also the film. So it's very interesting if it isn't him now.
It would also, I mean, it just ties in with Gandalf's, like, the trust.
the
that-
Shirelings.
love of the
Yeah, like-
halflings.
Yeah. And also he became
it's
very well spoken.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
You know.
out of nowhere.
yeah. I mean, I'm not expecting him to be Cockney, because obviously he'd be an orc.
Yes.
Some disgusting goblin. Yeah.
Meat's back on the menu, boys.
Yeah, 2 for a pound. What? What's he said that?
So funny.
Yeah. So he probably is Gandalf, and it would make sense, regardless of the fact that this is the Second Age and Gandalf is the Third Age. It would make sense because he is like the polar opposite of Sauron, and he plays that part to take him down. So why not let it be Gandalf?
Yeah.
It would be quite heartbreaking for it to be Saruman.
Yeah.
But the idea of that heartbreak ties in with the entire series, I think. So that would be good. Because it should
Would be
end
good.
on a low. It should.
What should end on the low?
This
You mean
this
the entire
this,
show?
Yeah, this entire show. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it'll end. Well, I think the show's going to end at the first scene of Fellowship of the Ring, which is
yeah.
Not the very
you know,
first scene.
The last
the battle
alliance.
in front of Mount Doom, and that's it. The last alliance. That big battle will be the end.
Well, they
of
could
the-
certainly
of the
afford
Second
it.
Age.
Or it'll just be a Isildur
yeah.
going, no, and taking the ring, and then you're like, oh, Christ. Here we go again.
Imagine that.
Yeah, that's what I
Could do.
That's what I think. Okay, so
Well, look, I'll take that, but that is still ending on a low.
yeah,
isn't
it will because Lord of the Rings ends, you know, on
there's
a
thousands of
bittersweet-
years of prosperity.
bittersweet
So
no. This is, you know, this is the rise of Sauron. These are the Rings of Power. It's not doesn't end happily there. It ends happily. But we mentioned Isildur, so let's sail on over to Numenor, where Galadriel is attempting to rally the Numenorians, Turquoise over the sea, whilst convincing Halbrand to accept his birthright and take his place as king of the Southlands. What do we think?
Right, I'm going to lead off. This fucking bearded guy in Numenor, every time he's on screen,
Pharazôn.
I leave the room.
Al-Pharazôn.
He's so
Pharazôn.
boring. Everything about that storyline is fucking boring.
But he is an important
away.
character.
I tell you,
I can give a
unfortunately.
fuck.
I tell you what's going to be
Like,
interesting.
it's just
Just
boring. isn't it?
It's all quite boring on
there's
Numenor, I think, which is a bit of a shame.
It's very boring in Numenor right now.
I'd rather go
I
and
definitely
fight
think that.
for my life in Middle Earth, honestly.
Yeah. But the Al-Pharazôn thing is going to get very interesting. And hopefully that storyline definitely gets juicier. I don't think it will happen for a few more. I think you're going to have to get used to him, John. I think he's around for a while. It's going to be like 3 or 4 seasons. I don't know. I imagine the whole show is going to be like 5 seasons in my mind.
It is 5
and then
seasons. Apparently they had to sign up for 5 to get the rights from the Tolkien estate. You're doing it in 5.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
look forward to that.
Yeah.
Raking it in.
Isildur, though, interesting, isn't it? Interesting to see where he comes from. And Elendil.
I love Elendil.
And
Big Elendil fan.
I love Elendil so much. And Elendil we will love until the end of
We love him, yes.
his life, which we all know when that happens. So Isildur, let's focus on him. I can't wait to see more of Isildur because people's perception of Isildur is that he's this bad guy, right, who did something very bad. But he has some amazing adventures in this second age. He is a leader. He is as important as his father in founding places like Gondor, okay, and saving thousands of lives. He has a great relationship with the elves. So there's so much room for his character to grow, which will make his turn to that, the end of the whatever
Yeah,
happens.
it's Anakin, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah. Oh, in a way, but even
Not
I
quite
mean, I
as
know
bad.
this sounds
I mean,
bad, but
Isildur's not killing children, but
he just is corrupted.
But the way Isildur dies in the film is like, he's a wanker. He gets ambushed by a couple of orcs. It's not how it happens. He gets ambushed by like 20,000 or 10,000 orcs, and he actually fights valiantly to try and not to save the ring, to fight. But you don't see that in the film. You just get going, oh yeah, he gets killed by fucking. But he actually has some heroic moments still. So I want the heroic Isildur and the stories of him before the ring. And I can't wait to see more of that because he's a great character and he's going to have a lot of room to grow, which is really good.
I mean, the fact that he's now stuck in, Mordor
under
on
a
his
building.
Mordor, yeah.
That's going to be cool to see him. Like, we're going to start seeing the heroic growth of him fighting his way out of that shithole on his own.
It's a mess,
he's a
isn't it?
shithole, let's be honest. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. I like him. I like him.
I think, like I said before, from episode 5,
The actor,
it all
not
kind
just
of
the character.
It seemed like the cogs started to click together with him and Elendil and the dialogue, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting it now. I understand you. Before I was like, he's just a bit of a dweeb, but now I'm like, no, they've developed his character, and yeah, I'm sympathetic towards him currently. Be interesting, I mean,
but Elendil is top notch,
He's
guys.
brilliant,
Sorry,
isn't he?
I just want to say
nobility distilled.
that last.
I love him.
That last interaction with the Queen on the boat before they reach Numenor, and he he says something so profound and wise about why he's still part of the faithful, those who align themselves with elves, even after helping Galadriel, and then he thinks his son is dead at this point. He says this line to her. I can't read the exact words of it, but I was like, oh my god, this guy.
Elendil does not just mean one that loves the stars. He says that.
Yeah, something like that.
I was like,
yeah,
what
something
does
like that.
mean?
And
I don't really get what that means, but I loved hearing it.
Yeah. He's just fantastic. The actor playing him is fantastic, and you can see how he is going to be a king. So
I love
it's
him.
very, it's just lovely to see. What? Sorry?
Yeah, he's good.
He is really good.
Good on
He's
him.
good.
And yeah, we see your mate Farazon and his stupid little son trying to blow up the boats so they don't go. But it's just his son that wants to do that. And I do think they're pretty mid. Not
Len.
You said you did cast him as Len. They're going to be important as the series goes on. So we have to kind of put a pin in them. Muriel's got a Palantir. Seems like she's been looking in that a bit.
She's blind now, and you're saying about using the Palantir.
You've skipped ahead. I'm just talking about her and her. She's sort of...
Oh, sorry.
She's had this temptation to look in the Palantir. I'm wondering where the other ones are at this point. Sauron got one? I mean, he hasn't, because we know what he's doing. But...
No. The Palantir interest is 9 of them, and whether or not they keep all 9, but the Palantiri are used actually by the Númenóreans. So it's going to be interesting. They actually use them to see across Middle-earth, and then they get lost. So I don't know how they're going to play into that.
Because there is a scene
but they're
when
interesting.
the king is dying. Another king dying and saying something to the wrong person, just like in House of Dragon. And he says to
Stop saying that.
Elendil's daughter, whose name is not important to me right now. Stop looking into it. Stop looking at it. And I'm like, well, she's blind now, so she will. Just a little point again on these moments that make you go, fucking hell. The king, as he dies, is wearing this embroidered tunic, embroidered with pearls. And I'm like, you're dying in that. That's probably better than if I ever get married, like my wedding dress. Like, just the production values on this with the costuming alone just make you stop and go, fucking hell, look at that. But yeah, Muriel gets, persuaded by Galadriel to go to Middle-earth to align herself once more with the elves. And then off they go. We can touch on Galadriel and Halbrand's relationship at this point. Definitely develops, and knowing what you know, it is interesting how she's so one-track minded and like, no, you've got to. No, you do want to be king. You do want to go back over there. He's like, oh, I'd rather stay here. And it's just... She's so...
Well, he plays her, doesn't he? He turns around, he's like, well, no, you said this, actually.
Yeah, love all that. Oh,
yeah, you said it, not me, so don't...
I told you I took it off a dead man. I love it.
Yeah.
I want to go...
Mugged off.
It's very interesting, because obviously, like, their relationship gets quite... there's a lot of sexual tension there, actually, towards the end.
Yeah.
And she's so blind by her own vengeance and her descent into darkness in a small way, that she can't see what's right in front of her. And she's got a huge responsibility here, in terms of helping Sauron learn the methods to forge the ring, something that has escaped him to this point. And yeah, like Sauron, it's just interesting to see him as a person, and also as someone who... And this is the question. I got a question for you guys. So, do you think that we first meet him as he's fleeing Middle-earth on a raft, right? And there's no way he knows that he's going to bump into Galadriel, like, as far as I understand it. So he's genuinely just done with everything. And because we assume at this point he's been killed by Adar, his soul has fled, come back, and he's taken the form of a man. And he's done with it all because his experiments failed.
Shit.
And
fuck this.
And he's trying to repent for... There is a brief moment in the story where he repents in quotation marks, after the war with Morgoth, and tries to get back into Valinor, and they basically say fuck off. So do we think at this point, if he hadn't met Galadriel, would he just have left it? Because he's going somewhere. Where's he going?
Well, is he?
I think it's all staged.
It's all a plan,
it's
isn't
all
it?
Staged. Sauron the Deceiver.
Yeah.
I think.
I just think it's interesting because
it is interesting, but
Galadriel could have been the one that remotivates him.
Yeah, he's not Sauron the Lucky, though, is he? Like, Sauron the Fortunate.
Because he has no power really at this point. It is all down to his wits and his abilities to deceive. And I think
that's right.
He would know.
Speech score 100. Yeah.
Is that a gaming reference?
It's Lucy. Persuasion.
Persuasion.
Your persuasion
speech
stat
is one as well.
Is maxed out. Speech, persuasion. If they're maxed out,
luck.
Then you can talk your way around anything. Yeah, and luck as well,
Luck
John.
is
That's
one,
a
yeah.
very good stat to have. Yeah. The Galadriel stuff. Like, are we just skipping ahead to where they, he tries to persuade her to?
No, because I want to talk about the build up to that. Before we do that, I want to talk about, the flattery of. We are really skipping ahead. Let's try not to do that, if you don't mind. Just because I feel like speaking
Lucy.
about the very end, when you haven't even spoken about the events that lead to it, Mount Doom hasn't even erupted yet. Where we are, we can. I mean, let's leave Numenor. See you later.
Yeah, boo.
Let's set sail now, guys.
Boomenor.
We are coming to the Southlands, we will discuss episode 6 now, because it's Boomenor. It's all set in the Southlands, and I think we can kind of just hit it now. What did you think of the build up to episode 6 within the Southlands, and obviously how it all kicks off?
Yeah, really good.
I liked it.
Do I have to say more? Or?
Yes.
I like an episode that, a good Game of Thrones episode dedicates an entire episode to a conflict, and that's kind of what we got here. And I like the fact that it has many moments of peril and then glory. And then, oh no, they fucked it. Oh no, it's fine. It's all good again. Oh no,
it's much worse.
They've lost. They've definitely lost. That's good. That's good. If it had just ended without the whole Mount Doom stuff, then I'm not sure it would have been a 5 blue.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I will say that we said we haven't seen anything like this on TV before, and I do think that the only things that come close are obviously those, like John just mentioned, the big battles in Game of Thrones. I just watched Blackwater again, the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Very good. And, I can't wait to see Hardhome, and I can't wait to see the Battle of the Bastards on my rewatch, because I think they are the same sort of level of just not production value necessarily, but just the thought behind it and everything.
Also, the battle at the wall as well.
Should we talk about Lord of the Rings?
That's right.
Game of Thrones. Come on, guys.
Sorry,
I can't wait to see that again. Right.
But I was going to say, do you know what I really like about
Jon Snow.
this version of Middle Earth is it's a lot more brutal.
It is.
Okay, so some people have said, "Oh, it's not right. It's not Tolkien." It's like, well, come on now. People, there's got to be serious peril at stake. And the moment in episode 6 where they're locked in that tavern and Adar is just slaughtering these people, like slitting their throats and shit, and just stabbing them.
Oh, Christ!
I was just like, "Oh my word! This is like eerie and just something I wasn't expecting from the Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth world, Tolkien's world." And that's the moment where I was like, okay, they're not playing around here. This is really got me on the edge of my seat, and that was that was one of the low points. And then the Numenorians turn up, and it's like Helm's Deep, look for me as the sun rises. And then the end happens, and you're like, oh my word, this is crazy. So it had that roller coaster emotion and the production value, but everything didn't feel cheap. It didn't feel like they would cheat, like, oh, they've won, and then they cheat us. It felt all perfectly plausible and correct to me. So, and that's why it worked on so many levels.
Even that set piece of them coming in on the horses, I was like, look at that.
Yeah.
How good does that look? It's not like
It looks so good.
Yeah, it's not like they've shot like 4. And then there's a blur in the background. It's like, is that CGI? No.
the one
They're all
thing, the
there.
one thing I'd say is we didn't. There's a moment where they're in the tavern and they're surrounded, and the horrible stuff's happening, and they cut to the Númenóreans like just at one shot of them just charging, crazily, and I was like, we didn't need to see that. It's taken the peril away because I know they're going to get there, and I just didn't need to see that. Just let them turn up because that would be way better. So that was a weird stylistic choice, but other than that, it was awesome.
I think there's a couple of standout scenes. Arondir, I love Arondir, by the way. Let's give him some props. He's been a great character. His fight with the huge orc was one of the best fight scenes I've seen.
I loved it.
Awesome.
So good.
I think he's a former ballet dancer, and his physicality in that fight was amazing.
Wow.
And
That big orc, I wouldn't have thought so.
you don't know some of them at all.
Plie.
But it was so good, and the sort of knife in the eye, and then him just all his blood and guns just going into his mouth and it not stopping. I was like,
rank.
this is
Can you
fucking
close your mouth?
disgusting. And it was true.
He was lapping it
true
up, wasn't he?
peril.
Yeah,
I was
tongue
like,
actually, tasty.
is he actually gonna? I didn't think he would die, but God, it was a good scene. In amongst the set pieces were all done really well. The revelation they're actually fighting their own people was quite horrible, right? Quite brutal.
Yep.
And we have to talk about Adar, I think, because I think he's been a great character. I think Joseph Maul has done
Benjen.
Uncle Benjen. He's done
Uncle Benjen.
a really good job.
Benjen. Can we talk about Lord of the Rings, please? Can we talk about the Rings of Power, please?
I think he's done a fantastic job, and that scene between him and Galadriel, quite a moment in an action-packed episode, was fantastic.
Great scene.
Really good his acting, and just actually they gave him a little bit of nuance in that when he says, are the orcs not allowed to have air to breathe, and you're like, I guess so. And
it's a very interesting question, and something that Tolkien has never really addressed, was that the orcs are fundamentally, in his world, in a way, they are fundamentally evil, right? So there's a lot of people out there who don't like this whole orcs have feelings
Orc lives
too
matter.
situation, because he created something so that they could just be hacked down,
Yeah.
and they are this evil force. So I guess Rings of Power is doing something that I like, and that Game of Thrones, like we talked about, did very well, which is grey characters, a bit of, not everyone is necessarily 100% evil. Yes, some characters are, but there is motivations for everyone, and it's interesting because that conversation with Adar and Galadriel, where he's like, look, you said you were looking for Morgoth's first lieutenant, it's you. Look at the way you're speaking. You talk about genocide. Yeah. He's like, she's literally like, I'm going to kill every single one of your children. That's what she says to him. Like, it's genocide, man. She's just threatened genocide on the guy. And that line didn't sit right with me, like, for Galadriel saying it. I was just a bit like, come on, that's mental.
Though,
that just doesn't feel
that's
right.
kind of,
but,
that's in keeping with her character at the moment, though, isn't it? Where she's just...
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And also, elves are not, by definition,
Hell-bent.
just good. They're sort of strange and high and unknown. And the Galadriel we see in Lord of the Rings, this is many years on. They're in the books. They're frightened of her. As much as she does give them gifts, she's not a cuddly elf. She's frightening.
No. Well, she is very frightening and very powerful.
Yeah. So, and people are like, oh my God, they're making her like evil. It's like, well, if you think you should have the right to sort of rule over a certain race. Yeah. How different are you from Sauron? Maybe this is why he sees an affinity with you.
That's right.
It's very interesting. Rather than she's just solidly noble and good, she's been driven to almost evil by her desire to seek vengeance against the person that killed her brother.
Did you notice in the battle just before this happened that Halbrand saves Elendil, which is quite interesting.
He's like, gonna need you, so put a pin in that.
but that's just fascinating, isn't it? Like, Halbrand saves Elendil, and Elendil essentially defeats Sauron.
He was just getting caught up in it, wasn't he? Just getting caught up in it.
He's like, oh shit, I should have let him
like,
die.
He's a noble guy.
Jesus.
I can't let him die. what did you think of like the chase scene and then the kind of, because that was obviously before the conversation, the revelation of the switcheroo with the hilt? I didn't see it coming. I didn't
see it coming, and I'm usually very good at this sort of thing, and I was just like, oh fuck. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, because I actually had a moment of dread in me when he revealed that shitty little hammer or whatever was under that cloth.
I mean, I was delighted. I was delighted that it was a hammer, to be honest, because I was like, oh, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
But also, like, you'd check it, wouldn't you? Like, come on.
But what my issue is that...
How has Galadriel not looked at that? Jesus
Arondir,
Christ. You know, she'd be like, what sort of sorcery is
Theo's
this?
talking to Arondir and saying, you know, it's got this thing's got a bit of a hold on me. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm just drawn to it. And he's like, oh yeah, well just go and give it to Galadriel and she'll get rid of it, or the Númenóreans will get rid of it. It's like, right, that's like saying to Boromir, you know, who's got the ring, oh, you know, it makes me want to take it and it makes me want to hurt Frodo, and Aragorn going, oh, don't worry about it, just go and give it back to Frodo. Like, don't put something
just wear it for a bit.
Don't put something that he's obviously affected by into his hands, Arondir. You make sure it gets to the Númenóreans. But it didn't matter anyway. But yeah, that, and it's just the payoff, because it sounds stupid, but when you see the orcs digging the tunnels, I wasn't really thinking about why they were digging them. I was just like, it's just labour, isn't it? It's like maybe they're digging tunnels so they don't have to then get underground and travel in the day.
Well, to avoid the sun, right?
Yeah, so it didn't.
Got to do something.
I never thought, why are they doing this? And then when you're like, this is why they did the tunnels. It's like, it's all worked out. It's all payoff. It's only a small thing, but yeah, that scene, it's just like, oh shit. Because I did think, if this is Mordor, where will Mount Doom be? And then all the dust and just. And what did you call it? We said in our messages, Len, there's hyperbaric.
Well, I said it's a bit ridiculous that it's a pyroclastic flow and Galadriel just takes it right in the face. Now, come on now. That is incinerating people. That is no laughing matter. But I'll let it go. It was just a bit silly.
It looked cool.
Yeah. Well, I think they get away with it because it's not like, had it incinerated other people, then you'd be a bit like, oh, what's going on here? Whereas I think they're just saying, it's just dust, isn't it? It's just dust. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Dust. Well, it's
absolutely. You let it go, didn't you? You let it go.
It's an absolutely fantastic.
I did let it go, John.
Episode. I was slightly disappointed by the episode that followed, mainly because it was just a bit but it kind of developed more of the characters. We see poor Elendil thinks his son's dead. We see Isildur's sort of trapped under a building. They just leave him there. Why?
Yeah, he's definitely
dead. So
dead. Leave him, innit?
Don't worry about it.
Do you want to not just have a look? No time.
It's all right. Beric will go save him. It's all good.
Yeah, no, that's just the fire screaming out. Yeah. So what I wonder is if, so we know, skipping ahead a little bit, Sauron's got to go to Númenor. Is he going to find Isildur and save him, and then they sail back together? I wonder.
I think Sauron's just focused on forging the rings at this point. He's still got to make the 9 rings for men. He's still got to make.
He's got a lot on,
and he's got to make the one ring. He's got a lot on, but now he's got the skills.
Got the know-how.
So I think he makes the rings first, then the Númenóreans defeat him, then he gets taken over there. That's the way I understand it.
I'm just wondering because Isildur's there.
Going to make his way
I'm
back
wondering
on his own.
If they meet again, but he surely just kill him.
I think they might. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting.
So we see Halbrand after the world's quickest coronation, and one of the worst lines of dialogue: "Are you the king that was promised?" Like, don't ever say that again, Bronwyn, who recovered.
Yep, definitely me.
She recovered very well from her grievous wounds because she looked better than ever. I was like, "Oh, you're fine then, are you?" But I'm glad. Didn't want her to die. Bless her. She tried her best. So yeah, Galadriel stumbles upon poor injured Halbrand and says, I know what he needs. Elvish medicine. Takes him to Lindon.
Medicine.
And it took that long for me to go.
Get him some Elvish medicine.
So that's Sauron.
Yeah, they take him to Eregion.
I thought it was Lindon.
Which is Celebrimbor's settlement, his smithery.
Flat.
His flat, basically.
Parchment.
Which Gil-galad's saying, nah, I got to evict you from here. And he's like, nah, just one more month, please. Can you give me one more
We've
month?
got to go now. Disease is spreading. I love these scenes. I love these scenes in Eregion.
Yeah. The moment Halbrand is just stood in his workshop,
it made me anxious.
I knew you
had
hadn't seen the
anxiety.
episode.
I was like, why is this making me so? And every time he said maybe something smaller, and my head would whip round. I was just looking at Aaron like, oh my god, it's like maybe a crown. Look round again, like, when's he going to say it? When's he going to say the word ring, which we've not heard?
I said to Mel, I said to Mel when we were watching it, I was didn't say it, I was like, looking
so
at it
annoying,
going.
but
and then I was like, you know that's Sauron, don't you? And she was like, what? I was like, listen to what he's saying. Just listen. He's being the most obvious sinister person in the sort of
really
in the
sinister.
Smith. He's like, wait, yeah, but what if you tried doing this with the materials?
I just loved his flattery of how he's saying it, Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor.
How it was so. He was like, "You're not the Celebrimbor, are you?" Oh wow, because he just needs so little flattery. He was just like,
Celebrimbor.
"Oh, you're wow, what an honor!" Like, oh, I thought he did a great job, Charlie Vickers. I have to say, like, I wasn't sure.
He sounded more impressed than that.
No, I found it really. It was like, like I don't
You'd kick him out
like
otherwise.
the bare minimum.
You're fucking taking the piss, mate.
And then there's his little suggestions, and then his dialogue with Galadriel when it's like, this is all because of you, and I make sure everyone knows it. It's like, oh, it's so sinister. And her face, she's just like, oh no,
But
no.
the good thing about Halbrand as being Sauron is like it's there throughout the season. Like you see him being an amazing smith.
Can
in
I stay
Numenor,
here and be a
right?
smith?
And he the sort of godlike figure that he sort of studied under was a smith, which is why he's so like good at forging the rings. Like he is the ultimate sort of smith, right? You see these signs, and then you see him there with Celebrimbor. He's far superior to Celebrimbor in a way, right? But he's like sucking up to him, and they need each other to achieve. Well, Celebrimbor's chasing, something as famous as the Silmarils. Well, I'll tell you something, he gets there. And, Sauron's trying to create this power of the unseen world and the One Ring. So they
played
both
that
sort of
down dramatically, but yeah.
Yeah, One Ring and that. Yeah. But so they use each other. My interesting thing is how much more will Celebrimbor and Sauron interact now? Because you can see Celebrimbor is like seduced by power here.
Yeah.
By power,
which I
not
thought was
by
really interesting.
Wow.
Well, I'm not saying anything, John. I don't know. Sauron is a shapeshifter, so I'm just saying that. Make of that what you
fair
will.
enough.
Well, it's also the desire to save his race, isn't it? So
So he'll do anything.
I
don't
think
think it is.
that plays into it. But to be the one who does that is very appealing to him. You can tell.
Yeah.
He'll be the savior.
I really liked his acting when he was sort of getting lost in his own words. When he's talking like a power over flesh, and he sort of doesn't realise how he
Why you
said
said
it.
that?
It's very
Why you said it
reminiscent
like
of the
that?
Ring.
I don't know. One of the other Smiths.
Yeah, it's
All of
just,
these little bits are just very. I just found it very effective, and their final sort of confrontation when you do get some of the you'd be a queen, not dark but beautiful, like the sort of call back
Same
to
quote.
when she's tempted by the ring, Galadriel in the film. Very interesting, and I wonder, because there's a vision of them sort of ruling together. Is that real? Is he actually like, you'd be a good queen because you're fucking ruthless, or is this just another manipulation of his? What do you think?
If he had her on his side, it would definitely speed things along and give them a much better chance.
Speed the plan.
The Elven rings are really interesting because Sauron never gets his hands on them, right? Well, I think he gets his hands on
No,
one.
I don't think he ever does.
And
They hide them.
if he ever got his hands on the Elvish rings, he would have been never defeatable because he would control
Never
life itself.
undefeated.
Yeah, undefeated. So these Elvish rings are like the key. They're the tide holding him back. So
They're lovely, aren't they?
Yes, so I have a
They are
question.
lovely. They looked beautiful.
Which one would you choose? Don't worry about their powers. What's your favourite of the rings? I like the blue one, personally. I think that was the nicest.
I'd have to go red.
Water.
You go red?
Yeah, I'd go water. I'd go water.
We'll have
you
to
go.
fight over that one. Interesting stuff there, though. Yeah, with the rings. And what is so interesting as well is that, so you have this confrontation and she says, you know, fuck off, basically. She doesn't tell them. She goes back and they're like, oh, where's he gone? And she's like, he's not going to be back.
I think it's implied. I think Elrond's pretty
Elrond
adept.
knows.
I think he's figured it
Elrond's
out.
like looked at the nice
Celebrimbor
little
knows,
scroll,
and
and
he's
he's
gonna
like, "What?
and
There
yeah.
is no bloodline." And I just think that's another kind of aspect of her character. This sort of pride of just being like, "I'm not going to say that I made a mistake. Just we're going to still carry out his plan. So why are you doing what Sauron has told you to do? But we'll change
Yeah.
it." There's the arrogance that she has of like, well, if we change it, then it won't go wrong. She
Yeah.
doesn't clue him in. And did you notice the kiln? I don't know what you call it. Was like a big eye when it was all the lava or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks so good.
Sauron
Yeah,
eye.
it did.
Didn't
It's
it?
a Sauron
It
eye.
looks Sauron's eye. Yeah.
Very interesting to me. Galadriel's character at this point.
Yeah, I really didn't like her at the start of the show. I felt she was just not aligned to how I envisaged that character at all. And I'm not going to lie, by the time we got to episode 4, I was a bit like, I was just banging my head on the wall a bit with her character. I was like, come on, come on now. You're an elf. You've been around for thousands
Yeah,
of years.
calm down.
You're acting like a child, like genuinely acting like a child. And she did soften, obviously, towards the end of the season, and I can see the sort of development of her character. I just think they went too far the other way,
For too long,
headstrong.
I think, was the issue.
And it made her quite cold as a character. Like, I didn't warm to her when she was on screen. I wasn't like, oh yeah, when Elendil's on screen, there's so much range there, and so much variation,
Different
and like
though,
just
isn't
the
it?
way he delivers lines.
I think the elves are.
Yeah, I know
think
it's
she
different,
is,
but
she
he's
is
a
cold.
man.
She's a high elf.
He's
She's an
older.
elf.
She's
As a
cold.
percentage of his life, he's like 50% of the way there. Whereas she's like young.
Yeah,
Still young.
And she is quite
She's young.
cold as well.
They
Even
are.
in like,
yeah.
in the films, The Hobbit and Fellowship,
books,
she is a bit
she's-
like,
She's not. Elves
You
are
know.
very different to men. They don't have the
Hmm.
same characteristics at all. They're not going to die, so there's no point in
Drive.
Well, yeah, they don't have that sort of vivacity because they're just like, well, life's endless, so what's the point?
you'll never see one of them
Yeah.
proper cracking up.
No, she does
Like,
do a little smile,
you know.
doesn't she?
Nah, never lose it.
Yeah.
But moving on from the
Yeah.
characteristics of elves, Sauron. We know it's Sauron now. Great reveal, in my opinion. Good payoff. He's in Mordor, and facing off with Adar. Do we think potentially? You tried to kill me.
Oh, he's gonna fucking slaughter him.
Head
He'll
gone
slaughter him.
straight
He can
away.
say anything to business.
Um,
And then those orcs will be like,
Oh, follow this one
they
instead.
don't give a fuck.
yeah.
This one instead. Yeah.
It did make me laugh, just going back slightly, with Waldreg, the stupid barman, who like pledges allegiance to Adar, not knowing who he is, and he's like,
Waldreg.
Sauron. He's like, I'm not Sauron. He's like, oh, well, whoever you are, I'll serve you. It's like, you just fucking...
I'll just serve you anyway.
Whoever you
I've
are,
come all this
you
way.
seem
Oh my
awful.
word.
I've got time to change my
I'm
mind.
signing up. So that made me laugh.
I mean, he had to though, didn't he? He
he
couldn't just go, all right, well, I'll just wander off then.
did have to, but he was well up for just any kind of
Just-
fascism.
Honestly, anyone will do.
Up for anything.
Up for
Up
anything.
for
He's been
anything,
waiting
genuinely.
for it for years. Anyway, so that's sort of the end.
Hook up with Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor. That's the end of the show. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything I've missed? I'm sure there's loads because it's lots of TV.
I just don't know how they're going to do it all. That's the only thing I'd say. Like, the more I talk about it, I'm just like, they gotta do so much in like building Gondor, for example, right? Like, just maybe they're just not going to do that, but like, it just doesn't. I just don't know how they do that.
Do you know
in a
how they're going to
season.
do it, Len?
Do you know what I mean?
Time jumps.
Well, I wouldn't mind that. Like, as I said, the Númenóreans like live to like 400 years old or something. So Elendil and Isildur are like 300 and something when they, whatever. So it's possible, but it's just a bit like, come on now. I don't know how you're going to do it. I just don't know how they're going to do it. But I'm
Season
interested.
2. I mean, we're going to have to see the other rings. Yeah, must do. presumably
Yeah.
we will
See the
see
other
the
rings.
realms of men, the kings that get these rings, learn a bit of that about that. Maybe a bit more of the dwarves on that.
Yeah.
What's Galadriel going to be doing? You know Sauron's still about. You've enabled him to learn about ringcraft, and what are you going to do now? Without letting everybody know what you did.
Yeah.
That you let him in.
Well, I think season 2 will be as much as we don't like it, there'll be a heavy focus on Numenor, and there'll be a heavy focus on the Faithful, which is Elendil's
Just
crew.
improve the acting, and I would love to be in
liking
Numenor
elves.
because it's beautiful. It was just a bit dry.
I think we'll see Sauron crafting the other rings. I don't think we'll see the One Ring just yet. I think he'll craft the others first, and then I think in terms of Galadriel, she's got to have a few obviously escapades to what becomes Lothlorien and things like that. So it's going to be very interesting. Like, they've just got so much to tell. Like I said, they've got to get Isildur back to Numenor. They've got to sometime get the Numenorians back to Middle Earth, and you've got to forge all the rings, and you've got to fight some wars. You've got to build
4
cities.
more seasons of this though, so it doesn't all have to be in season 2. So you're gonna have to be a bit patient, I think.
No, of course.
Yes, a lot has to happen. To get to where we need to be.
Big focus on Isildur next season, I imagine. His character, like traveling across Middle Earth to get back, I think will be a big point of the season.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, I've got a screaming child in the background, but she's fine for any listeners that are like, Jesus, look after your children.
Yeah.
I have 2
Just
predictions.
watched episode 6.
Yeah. No, she's just been watching House of the Dragon. She's like, Jesus, the writing in this. So I would like to see a whole season of Isildur on his own. You know, give him some proper focus.
Yeah.
Let him build his character. Maybe at the end of the season, he gets to see his dad again.
Oh.
Nice way to end.
Yeah.
And secondly, and certainly the most important, this stranger needs to get some new clothes because he looks like a proper tramp.
He needs some detangler as well on his hair.
Yeah, get some nice robes, have a bath, and start to look...
Yeah.
I mean, Gandalf is a bit ropey as well, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So if he is Gandalf, he's going to have ropey hair, but at least get some new robes, honestly.
Yeah, Nori will sort him out.
And that's it. That's what I want to see.
Agreed.
Well,
Yeah.
they're in production now, and they're hoping that it might even be out next year. So I would love that.
There you go.
Jesus.
I would love that. I would love
Don't
that
rush
for us.
it.
No, don't rush it. But when you got that much money, I feel like it's not a rush, is it? It's just normal.
Amazon, innit?
Yeah.
Quick delivery.
Well, he said it. Anything else to add, or should we wrap it up there? Because it was run very long, just like the show.
I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I have to go and be a parent.
Elvish leaf.
Well, thank you guys. I mean, I really enjoyed the show. I've enjoyed talking about it. I think it's actually benefited in a way from the anti-hype because everyone's like, this is the fucking worst abomination that you'll ever see. It shits on Tolkien's grave. And then you watch it like, actually quite good. So yeah, cheers guys. You've made it actually more enjoyable for us. So not what you wanted, but that's what's happened.
No problems.
Thank you for joining me, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon.
You too. Thanks, Luce.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows
Meijer has just what we need for Halloween.
I'll get you a 3-pound bag of Michigan-grown apples for 99 cents.
Buy one, get one, 50% off Halloween cosmetics.
And 20% off kids' Halloween costumes.
I want to sink my teeth into Jack's Frozen Pizza. 3 for $10.
Mom, Dad, can we get our groceries now?
Discover something spooky and get more for your money with the same low Meijer prices, no matter how you shop, in-store or online. Exclusions apply. See all the deals in the Meijer app.
What could be germier than a bathroom doorknob? Try unclean countertops, TV remotes, fridge handles, gaming controls, and all kinds of things around the house. Help your family stay happy, healthy, and uninterrupted by illness this year with Clorox Disinfecting Wipes, Clorox Bleach, and Clorox Disinfecting Mist. They kill 99.9% of cold and flu viruses on hard, non-porous surfaces when used as directed. So get germs out of the way and get on with your day with Clorox. You're unstoppable when you start clean.